Hi, good afternoon, and welcome to this live Q&A direct from Glasgow on extraordinarily a sunny and warm day in Glasgow after the world's longest winter. So we're really happy to welcome you here to Glasgow. And we're talking today about the postgraduate degrees in history. And we've got representatives from our very diverse range of programs here from global history, from medieval history, from war studies, and I'm also joined by one of our conveners of the Global History Programme. Good afternoon and welcome to Glasgow. My name's Christine Whyte. I'm the History's Postgraduate Convenor, and that means I have general responsibility for all the different programs that we offer at the master's level in the history subject area here at Glasgow. And it's not an easy job because it's so incredibly diverse. But fortunately, there's a very large team working on all the different programs. And we have every year an amazing group of international and local students who come together and they work together and also in their specialist subfields with the faculty here at Glasgow. So I'm well supported in this job. And so the first thing I'd like to do is allow everyone to introduce themselves a little bit. And so starting with our two representatives from global history, Julia and Lola. Julia, do you want to introduce yourself and then Lola?
Hi there, yes, nice to virtually meet you all. I'm Dr. Julia McClure. I'm a senior lecturer here in late medieval and early modern global history. I specialise in things like poverty and inequality with a regional specialism on colonial Latin America.
Hi, I'm Lola. I'm a global history master's student. I've done a few courses taught by Julia and she's going to be my supervisor for my dissertation. But yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks so much, Lola and Julia, representing global history for us. And then Ruby, can I ask you to introduce yourself a little bit, say a little bit how you came to medieval history?
Hi, my name is Ruby. I'm doing a master's in medieval history. My sort of niche interest is women's textile work in the medieval period. And I came to medieval history by in undergrad, I was taking some classes on medieval history, and then I started taking some classes in experimental archaeology, which is sort of, for people who don't know what that is, making things to see what we can learn about history. And between those two things, I sort of ended up thinking about women in the medieval period and the kind of wool work that they do.
Yes, you started thinking about historical women making things as well. That's amazing, experimental archaeology. And where did you come to Glasgow from? Where was your undergrad?
So I'm American, and I did my undergrad in Minnesota at a small college called Carleton.
Ah, good. Okay, so also used to the long winters already. And Erin, can I come to you and tell us a little bit about how you came to early modern history at Glasgow?
Yeah, hi. I'm Erin. I'm doing MSc in early modern history. My undergraduate degree, obviously I'm an international student. I come from Canada. And my undergraduate degree was in early modern studies, so it just seemed like a good fit coming here. And yeah, Glasgow has a lot of courses well suited for the early modern historian, I would say.
Yeah, there's a wide offering in early modern history, but you also do kind of interdisciplinary work, right? Across theatre studies and history. Mm-hmm. And so you found some courses in theatre studies that worked for you as well.
Yeah, last semester I was able to do the research methods course in the theatre study program and learn about some resources for more part of my research involves like Renaissance theatre. So some really great discussions there about what sources and databases could be useful to someone doing a dissertation in that area. So that was really useful. And then also, of course, on debating dramaturgy, just because I don't personally have a background in theater. So it was great to meet people who have like real experience actually working in theater in Glasgow and from all over the world. It was really incredible.
Oh, yeah, that's so great. And one of our former early modern historian master's students went on to do her PhD, and as part of her PhD, she produced a play about her PhD research. There's all these kind of ways you can sort of bring together these the two disciplines and practices. It's exciting. So yeah, Jennifer, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to war studies?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm part of the War Studies course. Pretty small course this year. I think there's only like 10 of us or so. I'm from Scotland. I did my undergrad at the University of Edinburgh. And I specialised in the Spanish Civil War for my fourth year subject. And I've always loved war and military history, and this was my first proper look at it. And it was like, yeah, definitely something I want to pursue a little bit further. And so I looked at Glasgow, and it was a perfect fit for me. It was local again, and also just Glasgow's a brilliant city. I can't dice it in that way. And it had a lot of options for me to pursue different types of interests within war studies.
Yeah, because I mean, there's also a war studies research center. So it's a program, but it's also a concentration in research that cuts across history, archaeology, and also in the social sciences, because there's a kind of aligned program in intelligence and security studies, and one in battlefield archaeology, right? So there's a bit of a kind of interdisciplinary mix there.
Yeah, absolutely. In our core course, we had like different leaders for every different class we took. It takes you through everything, and you have archaeological studies that come into that. There's a different optional meeting that you can go to, usually weekly, bi-weekly, which will have people from, I think this week has someone from Cambridge coming to present for us. Really interesting. Basically anything that you can imagine will likely be covered. A lot of different hands in different cookie jars.
Yeah, because I mean the program covers from the medieval to the modern, and there's of course like immense relevance right now. Yeah, it's great to hear that even someone who passed their undergraduate years in Edinburgh can appreciate the joys of Glasgow. So I'm going to ask Lola now a little bit about what it's been like moving to Glasgow, integrating into the city. How have you found the moving to the University of Glasgow? Because you've also come from pretty far.
Yeah, I absolutely love Glasgow. I did my undergrad at Oxford in geography and made the transition to come up north, and I'm so happy I have. I've got a job in a craft shop, which I love, and I've got a lot of friends in the city. It's honestly such a friendly city as well. So if you're looking to have a relaxing, fun life as well as studies, it's such a great place to be. Great music scene, yeah, all of that. And then the uni as well is really lovely. I can't say enough good things about moving to Glasgow. It's literally the best decision I've ever made.
Sorry, Julia, you're gonna have to go over. I'm gonna cry a little bit. I'm actually from Glasgow, and that is that is so heartwarming to hear. So I think that one of the best things you can have. We like if you look online at the university's presentations, like we have a lot of like resources and videos, but all these kind of like cultural treasures, medieval artifacts, the cathedral, the museums, the galleries. But like the people of Glasgow like really make it. And yeah, that's just so wonderful to hear, Lola. You've had such a good experience. And you're working in a craft shop alongside your studies. And you find that you work pretty okay?
Yeah, I work part-time, and that's completely manageable with the degree. I think it is very flexible, at least my degree, and my professors are really accommodating about help and extra support if I need that. But like overall, it's really manageable to have a part-time job if that's what people are worried about. I know Ruby also has a part-time job. And some people do their degree part-time as well, which is another option.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of flexibility in the system, and yeah, a lot of the students are working like while studying. What are you? So you've got a job, Ruby, while you're studying. You're not making
Yeah,
things from you, are you?
I work in after school care at a local school, so I'm over there a few afternoons a week, just kind of hanging out with the kids, and that's been really fun because it just really helps me feel a little bit more connected to the community, not just like 20-something-year-olds my age, but also getting to meet children and parents and hanging out with my coworkers and that sort of thing. And I found that pretty easy. I mostly work on afternoons that I don't have classes, so on days that I have classes in the morning. And I found it quite manageable.
Oh, that's great to hear. So yeah, I mean, this was one of the questions that came into us was about combining studying with part-time work. And so it's a great way to engage in the life of the city and pursue other interests. But it's also, there are opportunities here on campus too. So Erin, I think you've got an internship, is that right, with the student learning team?
Yeah, I found the opportunity on the Students Opportunities Hub in the fall and thought it would be a really great fit because I had done a lot of societies and clubs and stuff during my undergrad. And yeah, it's a really great opportunity to see behind the scenes in a lot of these things. We're doing a review of the course portfolio for MA and MA Soc-Sci programs. I got to conduct sort of like a student panel last week and talk to undergraduate students, get their feedback directly. Just like a really interesting experience that I'd never had before, and really great for the kind of career that I'm sort of considering in the future, in like academia, this sort of thing. It's really cool experience and something I never would have, had before.
Yeah, and great to be able to meet the students who are coming up through the undergrad, and you got that. You're close to that experience, but got a little bit of perspective on it, can reflect on it, and I'm sure they're also super interested in you making this move, right, from Canada to Scotland to study. Because I'm sure a lot of them are excited also to study abroad.
Yeah, definitely, and coming at it from an outside perspective, it's great to learn about how things are run over here as well, and like the comparisons between what I know and everything happening here. It seems really valuable.
Oh yeah, thanks, Erin. That's good to hear about that experience. I'm aware that Lola has to leave us a little bit early, so I wanted to ask her some questions about studying global history, especially because Lola, you come from a geography background, so you're bringing some new perspectives to the table in your classes. So how are you finding global history?
I think it's a really good move that I've made. Geography's obviously about global history in a sense, and I wanted to get a more grounded understanding about the theories that I was looking at in my undergraduate. So coming here and doing global history has definitely given me that, and it's given me a different perspective on. It's a completely different style of writing essays and stuff like that. So there's a lot of new skills which you do get a lot of help with, and there's lots of people to discuss that transition with in and outside of the course. And probably the best thing that I've done in the global history degree so far is the archives course. So we do a core course called Global History through Local Archives. And in that course, we go to 4 different archives or museums in and around Glasgow and discuss some of the material objects and archive materials there and how those relate to both Glasgow's history but also the macro histories around them as well. And it's that's a really fun part of global history, I'd say.
Yeah, and it's showing how the global history doesn't have to be all kind of international flights and sort of huge expenditure. It's also about thinking about the global, like where we are in Glasgow, the global connections of this place, which like you all are part of as students who've either moved internationally or will in the course of your career. You're tackling international themes, like you're part of that global history of the city, part of that patchwork. Someone's asked, are the courses taught in English or Glaswegian, which I'm guessing is like a dig at me, but I want to emphasize that I am one of few Glaswegian lecturers, and the faculty at Glasgow comes from all across the world as well, from the US, from Brazil, from South Africa, and Dr. Julia McClure here has come all the way from Liverpool, but she's come via Florence, Boston, and a variety of other places, and also a lot of work in South America. Do you want to tell us a little bit about the Global History program, Julia, and exactly this kind of local history that Lola's talking about?
Yeah, brilliant. It's nice to hear Lola speaking so fondly of this. One of our core modules, the Global History through Local Archives. That is really a wonderful course to teach on. It creates a great community with our students as well, and gives them the opportunity to meet with archivists and curators, and as Lola was saying there, to kind of get out of the university to go to different places across the city. So we go to places like the Hunterian Museum, which is part of the University of Glasgow complex, the business archives, the botanical gardens, Kelvin Grove. So many different collections around Glasgow that kind of give us as a group an insight into the kind of different source materials that we can use to do global history locally. Part of this is because Glasgow is known as the second city of empire. So its history is rooted in very problematic histories of empire and slavery. And so we talk about that in our courses. And in fact, one of our graduates of the program went on to become the first curator of the new Scottish Museum of Empire and Slavery here in Glasgow. So it sort of shows that kind of trajectory that you can have coming from our courses. So the other core module that you would expect to do here at Glasgow is called Exploring Global History. And this is where we explore a number of different themes, specifically empire, environment, and migration, looking at taking a deep dive through particular monographs. And so one of the questions that we had coming in is, what would be the best way to prepare for the Global History MSc course? And I think kind of if you can spend some time doing some readings but beforehand, I think that's kind of that's quite useful. I don't know whether Lola's got other points you'd like to respond to on that question of what is the best way to prepare for doing the Global History course at Glasgow?
I would say when you move to Glasgow, also just like explore the city and the way that history is told in the city. There's so many cool radical history walking tours or historical sites, and just try and like follow your curiosity about the links between Glasgow and global history. That's at least what I did. And yeah, a couple of books is always good as well.
Reading always helps. And there's a question here about the Global History Research Centre, and if it's possible for students to join these research clusters as it pertains to the research. And Julia set up a really successful, vibrant research cluster. And Lola, I know you've been at some of the seminars, so just before you have to get going, like, can you tell us a little bit about your experience of engaging also with research?
Yeah, there's a Global History Research Cluster, and they host seminars pretty much every week in term time, and I've been to quite a few of those, especially in the first term, and it's a really great way to explore different aspects of global history, because it sounds like such a big topic, but really you're following your own interest in it, so it's really useful hearing stuff from sort of medieval global history, for example, which is not something that I'm particularly knowledgeable at, but going to a seminar about it really helps you then reflect on your own interests and taking different aspects from other parts of global history that can be used in yours. So it's just really also a good place to hear what academics sort of further down the line are doing. There's some PhD students that do seminars, and then obviously professors as well. And yeah, I think most of the courses have research clusters, and I've been to a couple of the others as well. They're completely open to, and any postgraduate student is able to attend each one.
Yeah, exactly. We have a really vibrant research culture here, and a lot of it is quite interdisciplinary. Global history, I think, often coordinating with the School of Law and other colleagues in the social sciences, and to bring these interdisciplinary perspectives in a historical lens. The Center for Gender History, which also brings in scholars from other areas, from law, from languages, from sociology, so on. But again, like a seminar series where scholars from around the world and from around the UK visit, present papers in progress, and students have the opportunity to see what it's like to be at that drafting stage of a publication, giving feedback on it. As I said, there's a center, War Studies Center, which Jennifer, I'm sure you've also sort of been engaging with, which also brings in archaeology and strategic studies. We've got someone in the chat who wants to do a postgraduate in strategic studies. So maybe you want to tell us a little bit about the Research Center and War Studies.
Yeah, so it has different focuses every week. So like the research is kind of where you get to go for your specifics. If this is something that you're not going to be tested on, it's really just for your own interests. They'll usually set up a day since it's war studies based. They'll set up a day usually in your core course, which kind of suits everyone best. And it'll usually be after a class. But as said, like before, like anyone can join it. Anyone with an interest in war studies or anything to do with military and war history can absolutely join. A lot of the people that were on, or even on my electives and my core course, are also just in the general history master's program. So it kind of allows you to look at different aspects, whether that's you're looking at much more early modern warfare and conflicts, or you're looking at bigger battles and more modern context, kind of everything suits your specifics. And you'll have different people from the history staff members, which will come and do their own piece. And then, of course, we'll have volunteers, such as this week from Cambridge as well. So yeah, it's really good for what you're looking for your interest in. So yeah, really useful in that way.
Yeah, and I think also we've got a question in the chat about modules and programs connecting historical analysis with present-day global governance or development challenges, and certainly war studies, like sadly, is one of those programs that's really focused on the pressing issues of today. We also have a master's in reparatory justice, in which there's a different online Q&A for. But yeah, Jennifer, you look like you were going to respond to that. Do you think your historical interest, right, is connecting to this present day challenges we find ourselves in?
Certainly, yeah. Especially with even last weekend, I was studying in my How Wars End program about the Iran-Iraq war. So yeah, there's lots of correlations with different things that are going on. Another really important point as well is in the introductory course, it talks about heritage and memory of conflicts. And that's a really big part of that introduction course, because that is what these conflicts and what war studies is so influential for, because not only is memory of these wars influential in a sad social way, it's also used in a political way to remember these things. And so it's really how you see how history repeats itself. So it's definitely really applicable to today's conflicts and that unfortunate things that are going on at the minute. So definitely there's also a different part in the course where, depending on the battle, you'll look at either that strategic route of how battles play out, or you'll look at the historical route. The course in general is mainly a historical overview and a historical study of war studies, but you do look at the strategies and the ways that conflicts are played out and why decisions are made, and what else could have been done as well. It looks at kind of both of those things. So yeah, strategic studies definitely works for that, and it definitely applies to modern day conflicts as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the war studies program overlaps slightly with, we offer are part of a conglomerate offering an international master in security, intelligence, and strategic studies. So some of the students from that program, which is in an international program are also taking the war studies options. Yes, it's great to hear about how this really connects to the present day, and it's important for us all as historians to remember how history can be instrumentalized in different ways politically. We've got a question in the comments specifically about the Masters in Medieval History, Ruby, and asking, like, straight up, what are the best parts of the medieval history course? What are the things that you feel you've gained the most from, but also that you've enjoyed the most?
Yeah, I saw the comment come up and I've been sitting here trying to figure out what I'm going to say, because I've just been having such a positive experience. And I've really enjoyed, I mean, it's not over yet, but I'm enjoying my time at Glasgow. So in the medieval history side of things, I really have been enjoying being able to interact with things hands-on. I mean, as a student coming from the States, that's something that I got to do less at my undergraduate institution, just because there were less things that are there that are medieval or pertinent to my subject matter. So I've gotten to, throughout various classes, look at manuscripts, or Glasgow has a really big coin collection. So I've been spending a lot of time looking at medieval coins and getting to actually like hold coins that were from the medieval period and think about like who used them and who touched them and how they've circulated. So that's been really cool. I've also just found the program incredibly supportive. Part of medieval history sometimes is languages, so I've needed to bring my Latin up to speed. So I've been taking classes in the classics department to do some Latin, and that's been a really positive experience. It's been very helpful for me learning to get my language abilities sort of up to par for applying to a PhD program. And then also the last thing would just be the people. The professors are all very nice and very helpful and willing to have office hours and talk you through various parts of the degree. I also have really gotten to know the people in my course because there's not very many of us. So we all get along really well and, go out for coffee and talk about the homework together and that sort of thing. So overall, just a very positive experience.
That's so great, Roby. And again, it really comes back to people, and it comes back to things, right? Also, like Lola was saying, the people here at Glasgow, the faculty are love to get visits from students with interesting questions about their work and to learn more about their research. But it's also the cohort of students every year brings a new and interesting dynamic, because people are coming from different disciplinary backgrounds with different research experiences. Some people, we had a question about mature students. We always have a number of mature students every year who are much appreciated, who bring a wealth of professional experience, sometimes voluntary sector experience, sometimes government, sometimes corporate work. I think we get 2 different people who've worked in the whiskey industry this year, which is like extraordinary. And so from this mix, every year it's incredibly different. The conversation, the focus, the dynamics are unique each year. And the good thing about it as well is because we have such a diversity of programs, as Ruby said. You have this small cohort of students. You're all sort of focused in the same sub-themes. So while there's a big group for socializing and you'll meet right away through the core history methodology course, you also have the smaller cohort who are like sharing your specific interests. And as I said, people are coming from all different kinds of backgrounds. We got a question in the chat from someone who's graduated in German literature and wants to know, like, is it possible to pursue a history degree? And I mean, Erin, in a way, you can speak to this because you're an interdisciplinary scholar, right? In working across the field of history and theater studies. So how do you find doing interdisciplinary work at Glasgow?
I found it pretty easy communicating with the theater studies department. I personally don't have any contact with the German department, but I was able to take, I think, 1 course for credit within my degree. And then all the profs that I've talked to so far have been very open about me just auditing courses that are useful to my degree, so long as I come and do the readings as much as possible and contribute to discussion, which has been, I've been taking more courses than I'm getting credit for, but it's really great just learning about different people's perspectives. And so there's a lot of flexibility in that sense in the master's program, I would say. But yeah, I think German literature would be really great, sort of interdisciplinary bridge with history, definitely. That'd be so cool.
Yeah, and you, as Erin says, you can take a course outside the history subject area, and you can audit courses more widely. And there's also seminar series offered by those kinds of different research areas in literature studies and across all the subjects in the arts and the humanities. And one thing we actually found out just last week, right, Julia, was that the Glasgow University at the undergraduate level offers the most possible degree combinations of any university in Britain. It's Britain's most flexible university. And I really love that students can bring together two different areas of interest and really create something that's particular and unique to them. I think that's really special and important, and something we try and encourage. And Julia herself works in a really interdisciplinary way. This question about connecting historical analysis to present day development challenges really speaks to your own work, right?
Yeah, that's right. So I've kind of come from being a medievalist, now working on the early modern period, but a lot of my work has been engaging directly with indigenous peasant organizations in Latin America today, and thinking about the legacies of colonialism on things like constitutional law and inequality, and also thinking about pathways to food sovereignty. So kind of, I think that's another kind of interesting thing about the University of Glasgow, that a lot of our scholars are very engaged with activists and activism and social justice issues. There's a real kind of prioritization of social justice issues as kind of part of the ways that is driving their interdisciplinary research. So yeah, that's definitely worth mentioning.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, related to that, we have the Beneva Center for Slavery Studies, which works on issues around historical slavery and forced labor, but also issues around anti-racism activism in Scotland and beyond. And it's an interdisciplinary group of archaeologists, historians, people from English literature, and so on. And the centre was actually named Beneva for a woman, an enslaved woman, and a mother who was enslaved by one of the rectors of Glasgow University. So again, we're interested in these global developmental concerns, and we're also interested in the local histories in Glasgow of inequalities and social justice here. And all our students are engaged on campus and off in the life of this amazing city, as Lola so eloquently described earlier. I got two more questions in the chat. One is specifically about war studies, exploring the connection between military history and social body, historical or other related perspectives. I think you spoke to that really well before, Jennifer, right? Like the combination of the strategic and the historical.
Yeah, but more than happy to kind of recap it again. It's personally really important for me that I really was interested in looking at the different aspects of war. Something that I find really fascinating is looking at the lead up of war before war actually breaks out. So within that, looking at like the social, the economic, the political, and the strategic sides of military history and war studies was totally vital to me, and definitely Glasgow has fulfilled that. Again, that introduction course that you get, it really covers everything from very early on to very modern, and it goes through lots of different conflicts. It's not just big, massive wars. It's little conflicts to bigger conflicts of all different regions, and it's not Eurocentric at all. It's totally across the globe. So really, yeah, there's definitely differences between your strategic looks and your social and bodily history, that if that's what you're looking for, certainly covered. And then especially when you go into your electives, you'll have different aspects of that as well. For example, I see one in the comments as well about US history models. I think there's a couple of US history for war studies as well, if that's part of your interest. There's the American Way of War, and there's stuff about the American Revolution. So yeah, definitely stuff that you can cover for that.
Yeah, thanks, Jennifer. Yes, for exactly that question about US history, we're developing right now a stronger strands in US history. So a group of academics, Dr. Sarah Dunstan, Dr. Ollie Charbonneau, Dr. Catherine Burns, and Dr. Dan Scroop are together developing a sort of core module on US American history for the master's program. As Jennifer said, there's already quite a rich offering and globalizing US history offered by Dr. Charbonneau, and the American Way of War offered by Tim Peacock, interconnects with war studies. And Dr. Sarah Dunstan looks at the relationship between the US and the French Empire. So again, bringing in these kind of interdisciplinary approaches. She looks at that through social justice movements and anti-racist activists, but also through museums and objects and material culture. We've got one more question, which is about the dissertations, and I know, Ruby, you kind of, I feel like I've always had this like quite clear idea of what you're gonna research and what you're gonna study for the dissertation, and indeed beyond. These wonderful women making things in medieval Britain. Can you tell us a little bit more about them?
Yeah, so I sort of showed up with a little bit of an idea of what I wanted to think about. Actually, one of the reasons that I chose Glasgow is I'm very interested in textiles, and I knew that there was a strong textile history program here. And I've gotten to sort of email and talk to professors who are engaged in textile history here. But so for my dissertation, I'm going to be looking at women engaged in spinning wool in medieval Britain, sort of thinking about how they made wool and textiles, and how that contributed to Britain's economy, and also how shifts in the economy affected their lives. So thinking about how like the actual physicality of work has the capacity to affect women's lives. Sort of thinking back to the interdisciplinary thing, because we've been talking about interdisciplinarity a lot, is my work is very interdisciplinary. I like to think about not just textual sources, but also image sources, and think about sort of bringing some art historical methods into my work, what these sort of images can tell us about images of women doing wool work, what can that tell us about things, some religion studies, how does the imagery of women woolworking pop up in sort of medieval sort of religious thought and religious tradition. Something that I'm talking to, so my tentative advisor right now is Dr. Ian Forrest, who's the head of humanities, and something I'm also talking with him about right now is looking at the Middle English dictionary and looking at moments in which different wool-related words are first used in a figurative way, and what that can tell us about women's wool work. So just sort of bringing all of these different things together to paint a larger picture of what women's wool work looked like in this period.
Such a diversity of sources, like in terms of the source space, right? Ranging across the textual and the material, and then also thinking about gender and the body, like the experience of like working with wool. And it cannot be underestimated how important wool is in Scotland. It's an absolutely vital substance to survive the winters. And I speak as someone who comes from a family of woolly jumper salesmen. Like that's what my parents did, my aunts and uncles did. Long tradition of working with wool in my family, and so I know how important it is to the economy, the culture of Scotland. And Erin, I wanted to ask you a little bit about your dissertation and sort of how you're thinking about framing it. I mean, your topic is hot news in a way right now, thanks to the movie Hamnet, and so people are again enthused about the Renaissance theatre. How do you feel like there's a good amount of flexibility about how you can approach the dissertation as an interdisciplinary scholar here at Glasgow?
Yeah, I suppose I'm still in the early planning stages. I've only had one meeting with my supervisor so far, but I feel like I'm excited to learn that there's a wealth of plays in archives and special collections at the Glasgow Library. And these are ones not just Scottish plays, but British and lots of different early prints of plays that are. I'm just so excited to get into the archives and actually like get to interact with these things in person. Which I don't know how that's going to relate to my dissertation yet, but hopefully I can use something about the materiality of them as well. But yeah, that would be the main draw, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's been a bit of a theme of this session from Lola talking about what the course, like working in the archives and the collections, right? Thinking about all these different types of sources that we can use, and the materiality matters, and being in person, up close to the objects, the things, the documents. It really makes a difference. I think that, and yeah, thinking about this interdisciplinary approaches. And connections to contemporary issues that Jennifer raised, how well the war studies colleagues are able to do that, to simultaneously be doing that kind of deep archival, historical, contemplative work and linking it to these pressing issues. So we've got a particular question about the dissertations asking about the flexibility to frame research around communication, around institutions, around narratives of development. And I mean, I would say that's what history is kind of all about. Like, one, we're all about narratives. We're all about telling stories. It's a narrative disciplinary form. And what we're really interested in is like, how do institutions come together? How do they break apart again? And how did these like global systems of communication intensify and then fall away, or local systems of communication? So Julia, I don't know if you want to share a little bit some of your reflections on the master's dissertations that because you've seen a few and on the process.
Yeah, I think we've talked a lot about the work in museums and archives, which is really, say, fantastic chance for the students to come together as a community with people in the city. But then from there, you can use that as a foundation to develop your own research. So one of the questions earlier in the chat was somebody joining us from India and asking about looking at the East Indies companies and mercantilism. And I think that, the master's is really kind of a build your own adventure. You have the chance to follow your interest in the dissertation. And I think that's really key as well. There was somebody else who asked about the link between global history and translation studies. And again, it's like during this dissertation that you have the opportunity to develop those interests, either that you're coming with already, kind of with a clear idea of what you want to do, or that you're kind of finding your way to when we're in the classes or in the archives and so on. So there's lots of scope for developing your own research interest, and there's lots of support for that also.
Yeah, we've got two relevant experts for you to check out as well. Andrew McKillop, who works in the history of Scotland in the East India Company, and incoming got a new global history lecturer, Kathleen Burke, who works on East Asia and trade networks there. And on translation studies, we couldn't have any better than Professor Maud Braca, who's a professor of gender history and is an expert in translation, and had a major research project on feminism in translation in Europe, and looking at all these issues around translation and kind of the politics of that. So some experts I'd really encourage people to have a look through the staff web pages and see people's different research interests, because for the dissertation, you'll work closely with a member of faculty, but it really will be your project and your original research engaging with, as Erin's pointed out, these like rich documentary collections, or as Ruby says, you can also bring in objects, these kinds of sort of historical publications into it as well. So please do get in touch with individuals, have a chat, reach out to us about all the different courses and programs on offer. I just want to say like a huge thank you, Jennifer, Ruby, Erin, and Julia, for having this nice conversation with me today. Thank you to whoever brought the sunshine to Glasgow. And yeah, looking forward to hearing all your questions. And seeing you all, the new cohort of students, next year.